Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
We are proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ, as the world's most popular LGBTQ news streaming show. Our queer stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that we have more than 1,000 new subscribers in the last month, and that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
Over 500,000 of you have watched this show in the last 90 days. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in the LGBTQ community.
There is no other news program, the LGBTQ world, like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, April 17th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show.
Hotspots Magazine's Happening Out television network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community, of the LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbians, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are a part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out television network.
In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 LGBTQ television stories. We will produce the 20th anniversary of our Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival on June 14th. We present Pride Fete in August and Pride Fort Lauderdale in February. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders, anchors will host the show to support LGBTQ community. Let's meet today's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Rex Rogosch. Rex Rogosch is a visionary designer with over 30 years of experience in product design, interior design, and architecture. Also known in the drag community as International Lords, Rex recently returned to performing. As president and co-founder of Lantera, he champions mental health awareness through vibrant, inclusive events. Rex, Lantera hosts the 2nd annual Come As You Are Prom on May 17th. Tell me what's happening.
Yes, Lantera is hosting an evening of fun and advocacy. The Come As You Are Prom, a flashback to the 80s, is on Saturday, May 17th from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Wilton Collective Event Space. This fundraising event celebrates self-expression and community while raising funds for mental health awareness. The night kicks off with an exclusive VIP hour from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., offering guests a commemorative cup for unlimited prom punch, 2 free drinks, and a Lantera wrist bracelet with gives you perks at future events and 25% off cocktails at our after party at No Manners. General admission includes 2 free drink tickets. Music features DJ Marky Mark playing the 80s hits and electrifying performances by Jasmine Price Lords and Katia Tension. All proceeds will support Lantera's mission to provide mental health resources. For more details, visit Lantera FL on all social media. So I can't wait. This is our 2nd year doing this. We've also added Prom King and Queen to our roster. So we have 5 celebrity contestants. We have Sam Lance. We have Dixon Bloom. We have Shannon Nicole from Lit Bar. We have Regina Coco, who's a trans rights activist. And we have Rob Cole, who's a superstar in the community. And so every person who comes to prom gets to vote to see who becomes prom king and queen. And like I said, we've added the No Manners after party from 11 to close this year.
Oh, fun.
I think it's great. I haven't been to your event, but it's definitely one if I'm in town I'd love to go to. I think it's awesome that you came up with a new event and spearheading this effort.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just going to say, it's the Wilton Mariners Collective, and it's an 80s themed party with alcohol. What else is there to know? Like, that is it, just go. That's going to be a fun time.
And we do want to, we are, like I said, we do raise money for mental health initiatives. In the 2 years that we've been together, we've given out over $10,000 in grants to local nonprofits and other initiatives for mental health within Broward County. And we want to make sure that everything is inclusive because mental health is something that everybody deals with.
And right now there's cuts in funding for a lot of mental health. We weren't getting enough funding for mental health to begin with. And now there are all these additional cuts that are coming down the pike that what you're doing and coming up with as a new event, even it's your second year. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I can't wait to see everybody. I've already got my 80s gear and some glow in the dark goodies happening for the event. So it's going to be a great time. So I can't wait to see everybody.
Who have you guys identified as people to support within the community? Is it just LGBT? Is it the broader community?
It's the entire community. So I've always said, and I've said it on here before, that I believe that everybody, including your neighbors, the people you don't like, is still part of your community.
Absolutely.
So our mission from Lantera is to support everybody within the community. Last year, one of our grantees was 211 Broward, which is a huge supporter of mental health. They support the helpline. They support the suicide prevention hotline, and they too are very non-discriminatory. So we really do look towards people who are part of that non-discrimination in mental health.
That's great. So the event is going to benefit everyone.
Yes.
This is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing. And Queer News Tonight look forward to seeing you at the second annual Come As You Are Prom on May 17th. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Alex, Floatarama and Seminole Hard Rock will present a unique Pride on Water on June 21st. Tell me, what's happening?
Sure thing, Bobby. Floatarama, the nation's largest LGBTQ Pride on Water event, sails back to Fort Lauderdale on Saturday, June 21st with Seminole Hard Rock's Hotel and Casino Hollywood as its just announced presenting sponsor. The iconic Pride event will move from the traditional location on the New River in downtown Fort Lauderdale. This year, celebrating queer unity and visibility, the festivities kick off at 10 a.m. at Bo Camper's Sports Bar and Grill, the Intercoastal Dock. Guests will enjoy complimentary mimosas from the Our Fun Foundation and a custom t-shirt by artist Chris Lopez. At 11 a.m., Grand Marshal Alex Miranda of WSVN's Deco Drive launches the 2.5-hour brunch cruise featuring beats, by DJ Ronnie Minetta, a premier open bar, and serviced by Hunter nightclub bartenders. New this year, the celebration continues with a high-energy tea dance led by DJ Trevor on Bo Camper's waterfront patio. Floatarama is an official Stonewall Pride event with the full support from law enforcement, including Fort Lauderdale Marine Patrol, Broward Sheriff's Office, and Wilton Mariners Police. It's a not-to-be-missed event for June Pride Month. VIP tickets are $150. For details, visit floatarama.org. So it sounds like it's going to be a very nice event.
Yeah, hot bartenders, good music on water with food. What could possibly go wrong?
I love the guys from Floatarama. I've actually known them for a very long time. We go back to DC days. We used to party on boats in the Potomac. And what I really love is they've taken their love of boats and turned it into something that's communal. Again, I think right now we need more community events, and it's really nice seeing more community events off the drive. Like we're being seen in the rest of South Florida, which is super important right now. And with the support of people who aren't typically queer spaces. So that shows that we're starting to get a broader reach. So I'm going to be on there. They had me at free mimosas. That's all I had to hear about was free mimosas.
No, I mean, you still need to pay for the ticket, but, you know,
I mean,
mimosas are just attractive.
It's said free mimosas.
That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer news non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Floatarama on June 21st. Let's welcome anchor Gil Pontes. Gil is a relationship-driven nonprofit executive and political strategist, currently executive director of the Next Gen Chamber of Commerce. Formerly with Options Magazine, he brings decades of experience in LGBTQIA+ advocacy, development services, and grassroots fundraising. Gil, there is a ladies' brunch with Rita Mae Brown on April 27th. Tell me what's happening.
On Sunday, April 27th at 11:30 a.m., the Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library will host an exclusive champagne brunch with literary icon Rita Mae Brown. Presented by the Stonewall National Women's Fund, the $300 per person event offers attendees a rare opportunity to engage with celebrated author of Ruby Fruit Jungle in an intimate setting. Part of Wilton's Women's Week and the Lesbian Visibility Week, the event aims to spotlight women's contributions to culture and community. Brown, who's known for her wit and candor, will share personal stories and insights and laughter during the afternoon program following brunch. With limited seating to ensure a personal experience, the event promises inspiration and connection for all in attendance. Organizers urge early booking due to high interest and restricted capacity. More detail and ticket information are available at stonewall-museum.org. I can tell you this sounds like a great time. Anytime you can throw in brunch and entertaining conversation, we're all here for it.
I just first want to say, like, any event supporting the Stonewall Archive is a really important event that they definitely, I know that the ticket sounds a little high, but if you can afford it, it's going to a really good cause. I also want to, like, help a lot of viewers right now who might be a little confused. Yes, I did work at the same Options magazine as Gil Pontes. It's nice to see you again. Also, people might know that he's also my boyfriend, so welcome, man.
And
That was smooth.
I know,
Yeah, that
right?
was very
Completely
And this
weird.
is my boyfriend. I'm going to get into his camera.
I considered, like, should I sit on his lap? Like, poor, who knows how the cameras would work.
oh my God!
But
But look, I'm just thankful that we're promoting, a women's event, considering we're all 5 guys sitting at this table. But
Where?
Speak for yourself.
girl. But it is important to highlight, women's events as much as just LGBTQ events in general. So I am all for it.
Well, they do start off the letter. So they are the L in LGBTQ. And women have been there for the queer community since, the AIDS epidemic.
Exactly.
And often quite overlooked. So this is a great opportunity to not only highlight, somebody in the arts, which is also something that is being dismantled as we speak, but also a woman in the arts. So, and it's also helping a very important place, which is the Stonewall Museum and Archives, which chronicles gay and queer history. So it's a win-win for anybody who can attend.
And currently, with the banning of books and all of that's happening, Stonewall Museum and Archives is truly maybe one of the last places where a lot of our stuff can be protected at this point, because, in your regular schools, books are being pulled from shelves, and, just happened this week with the Trump administration and some of their control over some of the universities. Shout out to Harvard for standing up to him, but that also included them stepping in and, like they did with the Kennedy Center, sort of directing how programming is going to go. So keeping an organization like Stonewall right now is Archives extremely important to our community.
Yes, I agree. And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Ladies' Brunch with Rita Mae Brown at Stonewall Museum on April 27th. Let's welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer. He has been a South Florida advocate for over 30 years, raising awareness and more than $16 million for the HIV/AIDS community. For 20 years, he is also a travel director and corporate events planner. Glen, Wilton Women's Week starts from April 26th to May 4th. Tell me what's happening.
Sure. Good to be back. Wilton's Women Week, a vibrant celebration of LGBTQ women and non-binary individuals, will take place from April 26th to May 4th in Wilton Manors, South Florida. Organized by the Pride Center at Equality Park and Women with Pride, this 9-day event is designed to uplift and empower the community through a dynamic lineup of social gatherings, arts, and entertainments, sports, wellness, activities, and more. Set in the picturesque heart of South Florida, the event will spotlight LGBTQ plus women-owned and friendly businesses, fostering visibility and connection. It coincides National Lesbian Visibility Day and is presented by our colleagues at Skirt Magazine. Attendees are encouraged to support the event with a $20 donation, which includes a limited edition Wilton Women's Week t-shirt with community engagement and at its core. Wilton Women's Week promises celebration, healing, and empowerment. Wilton Women's Week is a first-of-its-kind event for South Florida. For more details, visit wiltonwomensweek.org. We talked about this a few weeks ago. It's a great event. I'm glad that the women's community, the lesbian community, is actually coming out and trying to do something that's not just a one-day event, but making it an entire week. And hopefully that if they don't fill every venue, because we know traditionally the lesbian community doesn't come out to a lot of events. They don't, there's barely a women's bar in our community, which is so heavily LGBTQ. So giving them a week to connect in different types of venues and sports events and entertainment hopefully will help raise their visibility for themselves and also, as a community. And I think right now, again, going back to everything that's happening in our world, and women's rights being challenged and taken away and questioning even your right to vote if your birth certificate doesn't match your, what your driver's license says, on the voting thing, that their visibility and being out there, they've always been great advocates to the gay community during the, AIDS pandemic in the 80s and stuff. So I think coming out right now with everything going on and having a voice in our community is really important.
I mean, I think, we've talked about this a little bit before, that, a lot of lesbians don't feel very welcome in the gay community, and there's always seems to be this weird divide between the men and the women. And so not only do I think this is important, but I also think it's important for the gay men to see the lesbians out there and see that, we are brothers and sisters in the same community. And I hope that some of the guys actually attend some of these events too. Talk to the girls and foster some friendship. I mean, there's pickleball on there, there's sports events, there's art, there's stuff that you guys have in common. So I'm glad that this is coming. I'm glad that it's happening in Wilton Manors and it's visible for everybody to see. And I hope that other people, step up and go, hey, let's go have fun with our sisters.
Mm-hmm. And of course, other women who are non-lesbians are also welcome to join.
Absolutely.
Women are getting more united now in the face of adversity. So
absolutely
fantastic. And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Wilton Women's Week from April 26th to May 4th.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Dr. Bobby Huen. A world traveler and well-versed in global affairs, Bobby provides an international perspective on current events. A PhD in conflict resolution, Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Bobby, bowling with SOFL Bears. Saturday is April 26th. Tell me, what's happening?
Wilton Manors is gearing up for a fun-filled evening with bear bowling, hosted by Bears of South Florida on Saturday, April 26th. At Manor Lanes, this event kicks off at 5 p.m. with happy hour and lane selection inside the Sports Stand Pub, followed by bowling at 6 o'clock p.m. sharp. Tickets for Bowler Bears are priced at $38 and include bowling shoes, games, food, and soda. For those who prefer to cheer from the sidelines, non-Bowler Bear tickets are available for $18 and also cover food and soda. Organized by Bear of South Florida, the event aims to raise funds to support local LGBTQ organizations. It's a community celebration where fun meets philanthropy, welcoming everyone who enjoys strikes, snacks, and solidarity. For tickets and events details, visit bosfl.org. Well, that sounds fun. I'm not an athletic person. I'm not a sports person. But even I can fling a ball down the lane.
I'm about to say, I don't think bowling requires any athletic.
Oh, it does.
No, I
Wow,
say
you're
that.
gonna get hate mail after
Yeah,
that.
dude, I say that there
sure.
are pro bowling leagues that go
I was gonna say,
that
I
throw
was-
things at you now.
I was part of one of the bear bowling leagues, and they are very competitive, but they are also very fun. I mean, they do have a lighthearted, and it is for a good cause. I will probably be, what I'll call the Goldilocks. I'll be on the sidelines, cheering them on, having my cocktails, and letting them bowl because I throw a ball one way and it goes the other way. It's not pretty.
You're supposed to release going forward, not
yeah,
coming
backwards always.
Yeah,
They're a great group. The Bears SOFL do so much for our community, and they did record-breaking fundraising last year and supported more of our LGBT community than they had ever done before. Brock is doing a great job as president, and I think last year he did all their fundraising and marketing, and what he's done to a group that's been solid. Their pool parties sell out. It's always a lot of fun. They're gregarious, and they're just amazing people, and I support them 100% in their efforts.
I was about to say, we've had fun going to some of the bear events. Like we did their dog event at Lit.
Bar.
Lit.
And they
were
always
so
have good
fun.
food.
Oh yeah, it was a fun
Great food.
time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you put food and alcohol and bears together, you need food.
And they're just coming off of their Bear Week too, so this is just a continuation of what they're bringing to
I
the
was
community.
just at the Bear Village this past weekend. It was a lot of fun.
No, so that is our big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Bowling with Bears by Bears of South Florida on Saturday, April 26th.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up the gay culture. Cincinnati Pride cut ties with anti-DEI sponsors. Cincinnati Pride is sending a powerful message this year. You can't celebrate us while abandoning us. The Ohio-based LGBTQ nonprofit announced it will no longer accept corporate sponsorships from companies that have backed away from diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, or known as DEI. Instead, Cincinnati Pride is turning to the community, aiming to raise $50,000 to keep this June's Pride Festival running strong and safe. As of now, they have raised about 77% of that goal, with just over $38,000 collected. This shift comes in the wake of political pressure. Though a recent executive order signed by the president only targets DEI programs in federal agencies, it's already making waves in corporate America. Many companies are now scaling back their DEI programs, and Pride organizers said the impact is immediate and dangerous. Last month, Anheuser-Busch pulled out of sponsoring Pride St. Louis, leaving organizers nearly $500,000 short. Similarly, Twin Cities Pride in Minneapolis dropped Target over its rollback of DEI initiatives. Still, some companies are standing firm. Delta, Hilton, Kroger, Fifth Third Bank, Procter & Gamble, and local business Pure Romance remain committed to DEI and to Cincinnati Pride. The decisions in Cincinnati may have national impact. Well, first of all, good for Delta. I mean, we all know that. Also, additional sponsors I think we saw last time when we a couple of weeks ago at Miami Beach Pride also included Chase, American Airlines, and multiple companies that have stood behind their LGBTQ community. So good for them. And boo for Target, and boo for Anheuser-Busch. Hopefully this year, that means that hopefully Stonewall Pride on our drive this year is not going to be covered with Bud Light tents. Anyways.
I think the story is less about the corporations and more, this is a big moment for prides nationwide. Cincinnati Pride made a right call. Like, one, should we, I've always been Mr. We need to have less corporate money in Pride, because I've always been like, they're fair weather friends. And we don't all, they're not there to support us, they're there to have a cheap advertising opportunity. But this is a little bit more specific of like, we have to have some basic standards when we take corporate money. I mean, like, and this is a great thing. And the fact that they've already raised 77% of their goal, that's great, because too often, these prides, they get put in these situations where these companies pull out. And this Cincinnati Pride said, no, we're not going to put ourselves at risk. We're going to make ourselves more financially sustainable and not worry about if a corporation is with us today and gone tomorrow. So good for them.
I know. I agree with you, but I want to actually point this question to the one professional fundraiser that we have at the table, and that's Gil. So how would you sort, or how would you screen a corporation, big or small, when it comes to
All right.
sort of thing?
Before I answer your question, I am going to launch and say that $38,000 at this point in juncture, with more than, I'd say, about 2 months to go, you're doing pretty good, and that's what I call some good old-fashioned grassroots fundraising. But in general, as you're talking about with screening corporations, as somebody who does this every day, almost all day, from my work, what you ultimately do is, I always like to say, one, your philanthropic veterans are going to tell me exactly what you value. And number two, it's all going to be about standing by your own values. Trust me, you're seeing organizations cutting their DEI left and right, but it's just as important to recognize corporations right now that actually are standing their ground. And they're willing to stand and fight with the LGBTQ community and BIPOC communities, and ensuring that DEI standards remain the norm, because it isn't just a buzzword. If you really think about DEI and the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion, these are items that are ingrained in our daily lives. This isn't just about buzzwords and right-wing talking points.
And this year's prides across the country need to have some sort of political stance. We can't ignore what's happening, and being out and being proud and being visible is so important. And partnering with organizations and companies that aren't kowtowing, we need to support them. They may not all be able to support all of our events that are happening, so we can't get angry at Delta Airlines if they don't want to support, say, St. Louis Pride, but they're doing the Atlanta Pride. I think we also have to recognize how many people are going to be going after a smaller group of people, and everyone's going to the same pond for funding. And that's always a problem. It's a problem here in Wilton Manors. If their goal is already raised 38,000, is that what it was, out of 50,000? Most fundraising, from my past experience, happens in the last 30 to 45 days. Yep. So them meeting their goal should not be a problem. And also, they're clearly different than we are down here in South Florida, because our security budget is more than that 38,000 just in security for Wilton Drive. So them being able to do it within that kind of budget is amazing. To be able to pull that whole
that's
thing
not
off.
Their entire budget.
Right.
They just needed to replace their sponsor.
Well, but I think you touched on a huge point about Pride in general, is that we do need to be political. I mean, we have to remember that that's why Pride was created, right? It was a political stance. Right. And I think over the years we've gotten comfortable, and we've turned complacent, and we've turned Pride into more of a party. And there's always been this argument between the companies that are there, is it's just a big, commercial for them. Do they really support the LGBTQ community at large, or are they just, cashing in June and disappearing? And then the second thing is that, we've become this, giant parade and sometimes a mockery of what Pride was really founded upon. And I think this is an important time to go back to those original values and go, okay, let's make a statement about our community. We're standing strong in our beliefs, and we're showing that people that we are part of the community. We are your policemen. We are your firemen. We are your barber. We're your teachers. We hold regular jobs just like you do.
Right.
And we are your neighbors. And these companies that are with us are the people who employ us. Or employ people that you know. So I think there is a strong political message that we need to really kind of fall back onto, and I think this is going to force us to do that.
And I think, the last couple of years in Florida with Ron DeSantis as our governor, we have been fighting a lot of things that are now going national. The whole DEI thing in Florida, Don't Say Gay, the banning of books, all those kinds of things now we're seeing on a national level. And I don't even know that we did that great a job while we were under attack within our own Pride, because we're still trying to make a party out of it and sell as many rainbow flags as we could. And I think this year, nationwide, as you were saying, and as I said earlier, it has to be a political statement. There is no room for fun. And I don't mean take all the fun out of it, but the parade is not as important as actually a march. We aren't sitting back and going, okay, people are disappearing and being sent to El Salvador. This isn't the time where we go, well, we'll wait till it gets really bad. It's really bad.
It's really bad now.
People disappearing is really bad.
Yeah. There's also a sustainability part of this equation, because, parades are very expensive especially compared to political marches. I know that some of us that have been to like the big, like Boston, DC, New York, they have giant entertainment singers and acts. I know for World Pride, Betty Who and Perfume Genius are coming. I know DC Pride has had Troy Sivan in the past. That's a lot of money, guys. And I was like, I love Troy. Maybe it's okay if he just shows up and gets drunk and doesn't get paid $80,000 to entertain us. Like maybe it's okay for Pride to be something that isn't trying to be the most biggest thing of all.
And as a political statement, you're more likely to get some of these celebrities to come out for free because they're standing up for a cause as opposed to just entertaining.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a whole different animal at that point.
And I just want to remind everyone, especially younger generation, that Pride starts as a political protest. Stonewall starts as a street riot. We cannot make ourselves complacent and just basically hide behind the party gear. And also, specifically for Stonewall Pride, I get a lot of social media stuff that people complain about. Oh my God, we need to pay to get into the Pride. I'm like, yes, because just for the security alone to protect us, especially in the past years of heavy unrest and escalating threats against our community in particular, we have to hire police officers to patrol the rooftops. And
that's a much more complicated conversation than I think people realize. Because like in Florida, the police are actively signing under state law that they are going to be enforcing immigration and other things. And so like, how can Pride be welcoming if we keep saying, well, we have to have the police? I'm like, the first Pride March was on Christopher Street in 1970. There were people that wanted to be violent to them. The police were one of them, and they seemed to be able to handle doing their march just fine. So I'm very uncomfortable with all the policing that we've been putting into Pride. I've been to many political marches where the police did not help a single person. At Charlottesville, the police did not help the anti-fascist protesters. It was the Black Bloc that had to come in and protect those people from armed white supremacists. So I have to be very careful about this police talk.
And I agree with both Bobby and Alex, but more so on Alex's side is that if someone wants to do bad, they're going to do bad. So if they want to find a friend who has an apartment and they want to do bad, they can. There's lots of visibility on the drive, on balconies. I mean, there's lots of ways for people to get in if you want to do bad. During what was it, the Halloween, people were coming in costumes. They could have been carrying anything underneath them. We had all the security, but that wasn't going to stop somebody because we didn't have metal detectors. We didn't have bomb sniffing dogs. We just had a lot of people in the crowd that were dressed in uniform and not dressed in uniform. So we spend a lot on security, and if something bad is going to happen, it's going to happen, but we do spend way too much money. And to your point, a march doesn't need to be surrounded by barricades if you're making a political statement. You make your political statement. And they're going to be activists on the other side, and that's where you want the police to be.
Well, with that said, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosch, and let's queer up entertainment. Shaun of the Dead fame Nick Frost faces backlash over Harry Potter role. This is the first of two J.K. Rowling stories on Queer News Tonight. Nick Frost, best known for his Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, is under fire after celebrating his casting as Hagrid in HBO's upcoming Harry Potter reboot. The 53-year-old British actor shared the news with nearly 1 million followers on Instagram, posting a selfie with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. He wrote, quote, "You're a wizard, Harry. Thank you for trusting me with such a loyal, gentle, and courageous half-giant like Rubius Hagrid. Robbie, I promise I won't let you down," referencing the late Robbie Coltrane, who originated the role. But the celebration was short-lived. Frost has now disabled comments on the post after a wave of backlash, largely due to J.K. Rowling's continued involvement as executive producer. Rowling has been widely criticized by the LGBT communities for the persistent anti-trans rhetoric. Most recently, she dismissed International Asexuality Day as Fake Oppression Day, and critics have flooded Frost's other posts with messages of disappointment. One wrote, quote, "You always were an artist I highly admired. You might lose a lot of fans with that decision," end quote. Another added, quote, "You've lost the respect of millions," end quote. While some fans applaud HBO's casting choices, like John Lithgow as gay headmaster Dumbledore and Papaya Escobar as Snape, many expressed disappointment that beloved actors chose to be part of Rowling-led production. Frost's decision is particularly striking given his next major role, starring along transgender comedian Jordan Gray in Transaction, an ITV sitcom centered on trans experiences. Despite criticism, HBO has said Rowling's involvement hasn't impacted casting, and the series will begin airing in 2026. Each of Rowling's 7 novels will be adapted into its own season over a planned 10-year run. So I'm conflicted. I vehemently disagree with J.K. Rowling and all of her rhetoric. And she's just, talking out the side of her head. However, this is a business decision by an organization, HBO, to capitalize on the success of the Harry Potter regime. We've got, Universal with all of their theme parks, and I don't see any of the gays not going to Epic Universe recently, or any of the Universal and going to the Harry Potter. So it's like we can't pick and choose who we're going to be mad at for doing something and then turn around and go buy all the merchandise, because J.K. Rowling gets parts of all of that. So if you're going to go after anybody, go after HBO. I mean, this guy is an actor. He's been given a role, and he's taking it. And unfortunately, J.K. Rowling always sticks her nose in everything that she does. So I don't know. I don't have a right answer for this, so I'm a little conflicted.
I mean, so am I, to be honest with you. But I mean, on the other hand, I would say that I am the one gay who goes to Universal, and I do not enjoy Harry Potter as much ever since J.K. Rowling opened her stupid mouth. And my husband still enjoys it. I never read the books. I'm the wrong generation, too old for it by the time they came out. So for me, but on the other hand, why are we doing reboots this quickly? I mean, the movies were barely out of the public imagination, and they are circulating heavily on streaming services, and the books are still being read by millions of people. There's no point in actually starting this reboot.
I agree with you. I think there's 2 big parts of this I think appeal to everyone. Is one, J.K. Rowling has a pathological obsession against trans people, and I don't mean that lightly.
True.
She literally wrote a 900-page book about a man dressing up as a woman killing people in bathrooms. There is something wrong deep inside J.K. Rowling. Something up here broke. But also on the reboots, the more that she's gotten more and more power over the Harry Potter world lately, and if she's involved in this, it's not going to be very good. Because the original movie, she was part of it, but she didn't write the scripts, and there was a great YouTuber that broke down the Fantastical Beasts series, and you're like, why did those come off so poorly? She wrote those scripts. She can't write for a movie, and I doubt she can write for TV. I think there's going to be like that Rings of Power thing, where it's a reboot that doesn't make sense. All the actors are going to look like cheap copies of the real ones. You really think that guy's going to be like Robbie Coltrane? No. Do you think someone's going to be able to do what Maggie Smith was able to do? No. And that's what that show's going to be.
And also back to the casting question. Why are we casting John Lithgow, who is a straight man, to play a gay character? If you're going to be progressive about it, find an old gay man. I'm pretty sure there are plenty available.
How many of them are going to work with J.K. Rowling?
I think that's...
Ian McKellen has slept with his staff, like the Gandalf staff.
I don't think you do.
Again, though, I mean, I think... Back to the point of, people are mad at the actors for taking roles. I mean, that's their job. Mm-hmm. I hate to say that. I mean, yes, money is going back to her, so that's another conversation. But hate mail doesn't solve the issue, and it's better to go to him and say, "Hey, why did you take this?" Knowing what is wrong, and if you are friends of the LGBTQ community, how can you do this and still be part of her? I think that, again, have the question. And again, the fandom goes straight to the hate mail, and I just think that's counterproductive.
Fandom culture has always been a little toxic. It is now even more toxic.
It's even more toxic, yeah.
And again, I go back to what I said before. We have bigger problems in this world right now, and doing a story where the Harry Potter is rebooted in a different format, if the franchise at Universal continues to grow, people are going to go. That's already established. The movies are out there. I don't love it because of her, but every time I go up to New York and see my family, they usually pop in one of Harry Potter's. It's on their TV all the time, and they're always watching it. So as much as I disagree with J.K. Rowling's, I think back to why you're rebooting this, and I honestly, they have a 10-year plan. I don't see it making it one season because I don't think they're going to get, not because of the LGBT portion of it, just because of the fact that this, going back to this franchise is still new. Harry Potter has been out there and it probably is more than a decade, but it's still fresh enough in our minds that trying to replace Hagrid with a new character is just not gonna play. You know,
Imagine like having the Star Wars reboot, like, you know, with Luke and
So they did do
like,
that. It's called the sequels, and look at how those turned out.
Oh, no, that's not a reboot. That's a
though they're
sequel.
considered a soft reboot if you look at their plot.
Star Trek did it right.
Yeah.
They went
And
back
yes.
in time.
I mean,
They
still,
put-
the
yeah,
Still
20-something
Magnolias
in their underwear on a
reboot
show.
failed, so.
But I just want to go back for the last thing. I just want to go back to like her like absolute hatred for people who are asexual. In other words, just not particularly sexual of any kind, no orientation of any kind. And she is still yarping on about how that's a fake oppression day. What? Like,
Well, J.K. Rowling punches down.
We have
I want to
another
make that
story
very
about her
clear.
coming
Yeah,
up. After Jen in a few minutes.
I will.
we are going to, on that note, we are going to say that I'm not going to plan on subscribing for HBO Max for that particular show. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up the worldview. Did J.K. Rowling win Britain's Supreme Court defines a woman as biological at birth? The UK Supreme Court has made a major ruling under the Equality Act of 2010. The term woman now legally refers only to a biological female. That's the takeaway from an 88-page judgment handed down yesterday following a 2-day hearing last year. Supreme Court Judge Lord Hughes stated, quote, "The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex," end quote. The case was brought by For Women Scotland, a trans-exclusionary radical group reportedly supported by author J.K. Rowling, a fellow TERF, and challenged an earlier ruling that said sex wasn't limited to biology. The central question, does a trans woman with a gender recognition certificate count as a woman under UK equality law? The court answered no. Judges ruled that while trans people are still protected under the category of gender reassignment, the sex category is strictly biological. In other words, the legal rights and spaces reserved for women, like hospital wards, sports, and crisis shelters, can now be based on biological sex, not legal gender. Activists say this will dramatically affect pronoun arguments and other alternative phrases like they, them for recognition. They also suggest this will lead to basis decisions arguments over who can participate in sports. Lodge Hughes emphasized the decision isn't meant to be a triumph of one group over another, and that trans people still retain protection from discrimination. Still, the ruling has left many LGBTQ advocates in the UK and abroad deeply concerned. Critics say this could erode hard-fought rights and access to safe spaces for trans people, especially trans women. So there's a couple things going on here. Like first, let's just get the J.K. Rowling elephant out of the way. You know, it is very disturbing that UK's views and discussions on trans people have changed based on one billionaire. Because let's remember, we did not see the sort of transphobia happening in the United Kingdom and ideas like this being an acceptable ruling before J.K. Rowling really started using her power, her wealth, her influence in the United Kingdom. And it's quite horrifying to see one rich person be able to affect policy like that. In America, we're unfortunately rather used to it. On the UK, I cannot understand their legal system to save my life. But the idea of do they even define what a biological woman is? How are they going to define that now?
I mean, at this point, as someone who actually understands a little bit about the UK system, the Parliament can easily, the House of Commons can easily pass an amendment to the Equality Act and say that sex now includes trans men and trans women according to the sex assigned to them and their gender reassignment certificates. It's a one-line thing. And remember that Britain doesn't have a constitution. It's just the constitution is basically the entire body of law of the United Kingdom, and they take some out and put some back in, according to who was running the show at the time. But more alarming right now is that's not just one billionaire woman. And also there's more, because, really, J.K. Rowling kind of triggered the wave of transphobia that swept the United States as well. She amplified the voices of Lips of TikTok. She probably red-pilled Elon himself. All these vicious hatred towards trans people, and all these fake moral panics about, a man is gonna wear a dress and go in the bathroom. These never materialize. Every day I see pastors arrested for sex crimes. Have we heard of a drag queen or a trans person, arrested lately? I don't remember any of it.
But I think you're allowing for more hate if you're a trans woman, mm-hmm. and you go into a men's bathroom because you're biologically built that way. There's going to be more trouble when the men are in the room and they've got their woman in their room, and they're just calling for trouble by forcing people into situations, whether it be in jails or crisis centers, where they're put into a group of people where they literally don't fit in because they have trans. They've, what would be the right word? But they're now transgender. Mm-hmm. And we're putting them at risk. And I think J.K. Rowling's influence, we're giving her too much credit. This has been a problem in this last round of elections over the last decade, as we've been heading to more and more conservative areas, as we were gaining. At the same time, the conservatives were gaining more power and trying to undo some of these things. And, to say J.K. Rowling's had a heavier thumb on it, absolutely. But is she the reason? No, too much credit to her.
In the United Kingdom, I would greatly disagree, especially with the Labour Party winning this last election. She's changed the conversation in England in a way that I haven't seen many people be able to do on something. Before she was involved, we didn't really hear the whole supporting trans people means you hate women. That's sort of been her stick. And she's relentlessly done that. She's obsessed about this topic. And I think that's why she's been able to influence it more than other billionaires have done on other topics. But sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say, I kind of agree with Glenn. She might have pushed the domino, but I think the UK, and we're seeing it in other countries, they're watching the United States, and they said, oh, big boy, now the United States has spoken their venom, so now we can do that. So I think while JK is still stirring the pot, she's helping, I think the other countries are seeing us, the American government, with all of our hate and all of our trans laws being passed and everything, and so they're going, okay, now we can do it. And
it's taken a decade, because you think about it, when Trump came into power the first time and he really brought this up to the top, that was almost a decade ago. And now we're going to, when he's done, if he finishes a second term and leaves, we'll be 12 years into him and anything that he'd done prior to that. So we're looking at a decade and a half of this messaging going out to the world.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. So I agree with you.
Yep, and one of the things, just following up on what you were mentioning, Alex, about the UK elections, obviously we saw Labour have a big win, but if you take a look actually at the percentage of the vote, it actually doesn't equate, because I think that it was the largest Labour majority won by the smallest margin. So ultimately what you were looking at is a lot of votes siphoned off from the Conservative Party, where there was a break in this kind of national populism that's taken over Britain with the Reform Party. You remember the name Nigel Farage from Brexit. So ultimately you're looking at this rise of right-wing populism that is ultimately leading to this.
I hear you all. It's just England has its own very weird, unique, trans, radical, exclusionary feminists that have been around for a while, and they've just sort of, J.K. Rowling has sort of like helped them really propel in a way that's a little different. Like America, our craze is a little different than UK's craze. Is what I'm saying.
But I think hate in general has found a voice since Donald Trump's first sense of office. We did not see the amount of hate rhetoric rise until he became powerful.
He gave permission.
To be
able to hate.
And then while he was out of office, he still was on his pulpit, which just kept keeping that stream of hate and people are like, it's okay now. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I'm not saying that she's not part of this. I think we're giving her too much credit, and I think this news story should be more about this law and less about her, because we're giving her too much airtime. And
she jumped on the bandwagon.
Correct. And the fact that this law just doesn't affect trans women, it affects trans men. I mean, can you imagine a trans man now having to go into a female bathroom and all the women running out going, "There's a man in my bathroom." Let's talk about prisons. And this law really affects the quality of life of everybody, not just the trans people, but the people around them too, because now it's putting them at risk because they have to now be careful. It's just...
And you can't pretend they don't exist. And
Correct.
That's kind of what they're trying to do by saying choose men or women. There's another group of people that are trans that are there. And you can say that they don't exist, but they do. And so you have to deal with it one way or the other. And again, I think we talked about this on another show. The percentage of trans people is so minuscule compared to the overall population that the chances in a secondary city of finding a trans person is probably close to nil. Because if you want to feel comfortable and be your authentic self, you're moving to larger cities. You know, you're not staying in Des Moines, Idaho, or, Des Moines, Idaho, or something like that. You're going to a bigger city.
And, the thing is, this is not just about erasure. This is about harm multiplication. This is deliberate to want to bring trans people harm. They cheer when a trans person get murdered. They cheer when a trans person get beaten up on the streets. This is not just legal harm. This is literally physical harm.
Yeah, they cheer. They don't normally cheer publicly. They try to change the subject. Like people, like whether we're talking about J.K. Rowling or if we're talking about some of the right wingers here that have been obsessed with bathrooms, they try to have discussions about sports, bathrooms, and biology, which they tend to never want to give very good answers on, to get us to not talk about the actual experience of trans people.
They probably are the same people who, got their parents' notes not to open the frog in biology in middle school. So they wouldn't know, a biological or a non-biological, or if they.
And look at Florida, not to belabor this, but in Florida, don't say gay. It means you don't exist. If you can't say it, your group disappears.
Right.
And that's sort of the same thing with the trans right now, with the trans movement or anti-trans movement. You don't exist.
And because they're the smallest population, they're easy to punch down.
Exactly.
And so they're using this to be diversionary towards other things.
And it's a launching point for other hate.
Don't look at the price of eggs. Here, there's a trans person you can hate. Don't look at the price of gasoline. Don't look at these tariffs. Don't think that, don't look at the pricing label on Walmart shelves that's suddenly gone up 50%. No, look at that trans person and what...
Because it's their fault.
What the mythical creature is trying to do to you. I mean, anyways, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's deep dive into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Gil Pontes, and let's queer up the USA view. Minnesota launches LGBTQ resident survey after 30 years. A landmark effort is underway in Minnesota where a state agency is surveying LGBTQ residents to better understand the experiences and challenges faced by the community. It is the first major initiative of the Council on LGBTQIA2S+ Minnesotans formed in just last year. Executive Director Emma Watts says this feedback will help shape future policies, programs, and funding. She adds, LGBTQ+ communities have historically been understudied, underfunded, and there's a lot that we can learn. Data drives policy. We want to make sure that we're adequately serving the community and their current needs. This is Minnesota's most comprehensive queer survey in over 30 years. Back in the early 90s, then Governor Rudy Purvich formed a task force on LGBT Minnesotans. Though underfunded, the task force met 40 times and found widespread discrimination, particularly in greater Minnesota, outside of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. The group also recommended the formation of a council one that finally exists today. According to the latest census data, about 460,000 Minnesotan adults identify as LGBTQ. So far, more than 1,800 people have filled out the anonymous survey, which asks about safety, healthcare, community connection, and more. To ensure accessibility, paper surveys are available at Queer Mutiny in Uptown Minneapolis. Co-founder Hillary Odie says the approach protects participants' safety. The survey closes May 31st. It's open to queer Minnesotans over 18 and to parents or guardians of LGBTQ individuals. So, at the end of the day, as somebody who fundamentally understands that data does drive policy, I think it's fundamentally a great thing, and as we know, Minnesota has been on the cutting edge of progressive policy for the past decade or so. But ultimately, kudos to the state for actually going forward and having this survey, so that way you can properly go forward and actually have the right mindset to build proper advocacy.
Do you think that, and this goes to everybody, that this is the right time for that people will honestly fill it out of fear that they will be tracked back? Right now is, I mean, you can track it back on all of the social media, whether you're LGBTQ or not, but it just seems right now in the face of everyone going after DEI, doing a survey at this point where everyone is so jumpy, I think it's great. I think we need the data, but are people going to be honest, and are they going to fill it out? And then what is the method that you use to determine who's LGBTQ that's filling it out, and how much of it is going to then be a right-wing group that's going to have their people fill it out to just skew things? I just question the timing on this and how you secure it and secure the names of the people that did it.
I mean, the thing is, just like the census, right? It should be more or less anonymous for the submission of it. And part of it is basically, you gather it and then you sample it with factoring in the potential bias. I mean, if no one actually, if they advocate, if right-wing actors, bad actors will call for flooding this with fake questionnaire, you will find it. You'll find the call on social media. You'll find the call on Facebook or, in Telegram chat rooms. They're not that hard to find. And for them to, and the statisticians will simply calculate that particular bias into it. And frankly, to fill it out, I don't think the right-wingers have to wear it for it. I don't even think they know what a pencil is right now.
So the National LGBTQ Task Force used to work on a trans survey before I started there. And then at my day job, where restaurant work, we do a lot of surveys, and I included LGBTQ as a new question and have done a few reports with that to get a new look at what LGBTQ people in the industry were saying. So just someone who's done surveying of queer people, it's a little hard to say on survey bias when you say a survey of we're just looking for queer people to tell us about them. The most likely people to survey in that scenario are people who have needs, and they're going to come out and do that. But that's also not necessarily misrepresenting our community per se. I think the big issue with surveying our community is that we're not included in enough surveys. Like I said, with my day job, we didn't ask sexual orientation before I, the queer person, was put in charge of the surveys, and so few groups do stuff like this. You have LGBTQ MAP, which has been doing a lot of good survey work with HRC occasionally, but you're not seeing a lot of groups include asking sexual orientation and then looking at what LGBTQ people are saying in wider data. So this is a good start, considering that we're ignored, quite frankly, in a lot of social sciences.
Well, and the way they're going about this, I think, is a little, because you have to go pick up the paperwork. So they already know that 460,000 residents identify because of a census. So you have that data. So there would be a way to blind mail those 460,000 people another survey. And it doesn't have to have anything on that envelope. So that way, when they mail it back, it can't be tracked. So there's some ways. So to your point, a lot of times we're not asked. But I also, to your point, I don't think a lot of people are going to get up, go to this place, pick up a piece of paper to then, they need to get out into the community. They need to get out and do the, like they used to do, door to door.
Right.
So they have the information of who these people are, and to protect their safety, it needs to be controlled, obviously. But I think a lot of people right now aren't going to openly just go and fill this out because they don't feel safe. And also they feel, well, okay, well, if there's a data breach or whatever, this can get back to me, and then somebody can use this to, spew hate.
They're putting their name on the paper.
But it's you're forcing them to go to a place to pick up paperwork, and that's already a target because it's an LGBT center. So I think there's some trepidation, right or wrong. People's fear right now is heightened.
It'd be like doing an immigration study right now and expecting people to pick up the piece of paper only to be picked up by ICE and taken away. I just feel like this is just such a time where there's so much information out about all of us that it probably doesn't make a difference. But like, it's always been a big fear of mine. If the wrong people get a hold of good information, what will they do with it? And having the Doge group going into all these federal buildings and accessing databases for the IRS and everything else, you go, okay, that was supposed to be protected. We were told it was protected. But, if the rule of law doesn't hold and you're not going to listen to the Supreme Court, what makes you think they can't get this data anymore? And it's just a paranoia, I guess.
It is, and they can answer this question. Like, as someone who does these sorts of surveys, like, I'll sometimes have like organizers that work for me will be like, oh, well, can we have who said this and that on the survey, their phone and email? Like, no, I disconnected that because I'm not allowing us to ever figure out who said what and for you to figure out who's queer and who's this or that. Because we said in the survey at the beginning that these people were anonymous and there would be protected. Because also, I don't know, if I get another job sometime or get hit by a bus, I don't want the next person to go in and try and connect it. So I'm sure they can come up with ways to show that they're making sure that your identity is not connected to the response.
But I think that's a good point. The problem is the other person on the other side. Like, I don't know that because that's not who I am. So when I get that phone call, click, right? Or somebody comes to the door, click. Sorry, not. So I think having that conversation, I think what they're doing is great, and we need that information with our aging population and the LGBT task force and funding being cut. Like, just there's so many things against us. So we need the information to say what is our community failing, and I think more communities need to do this, obviously. But I think I think they need to be better at saying how they're protecting their people.
These sorts of things really do matter. So like,
absolutely.
With the restaurant workers, we were used to sexual harassment being a big issue for women. Black women would normally be the highest. Queer people, worse. I didn't expect that in the data. So I have no idea what they're going to find in Minnesota. You never know until you ask.
Agreed.
And it could be healthcare. It could be employment. It could be everything's doing fine and dandy with the best queers in the world in Minnesota. But you don't know without asking.
Right. But obviously, if they only have 1,800 out of reportedly 460,000, that's too small of a sample.
Well, remember that here's the worst thing with that 460,000. The census is just showing you couples. That's actually not. It's probably a much larger population.
Right. So then the 1,800 people that have filled out this is even smaller. So that's my point. Is that too many people either don't know how to get to it, or are too afraid,
or don't know it exists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Glen Weinzimer, and let's queer up the worldview. An Australian MP uses OnlyFans to push free PrEP plan. An out Australian politician is turning heads and raising eyebrows with a bold new move to promote HIV prevention. Stephen Bates, a Greens MP from Brisbane, has launched an OnlyFans account to campaign for free access to PrEP, the medication that prevents HIV. Bates, who once credited his Grindr ads with helping him win office, is now using adult platforms to reach audiences with a powerful message. Talking to Q News, Bates said, quote, "Ending HIV is too important to fly under the radar. I campaign on OnlyFans and Grindr because it gets attention. Sometimes you have to make a splash to make people pay attention to the things that matter," end quote. In his debut OnlyFans video, Bates highlighted the out-of-pocket costs people still pay despite PrEP being on Australians' PBS drug program. But behind this unique action is a serious push. The Greens are pledging to make both PrEP and PEP prescriptions free, as well as all contraceptives. With the possibility of a hung parliament looming, Bates believes Greens MPs can tip the balance. I think this is great. Having spent so many years working in fundraising for HIV and AIDS, and how important it is that people get on PrEP, and how they won't convert to HIV positive or worse, get AIDS. Having anybody stand up in any community and try to raise that awareness, because a lot of our youth have grown up without really knowing what HIV and AIDS is. And if you don't live in a big city, whether it be Miami or Brisbane, chances are you probably didn't learn much about it. So here's an opportunity to raise a voice from somebody who is out there and is well known, and unlike a J.K. Rowling, is doing something that can benefit society with no downside to it that I see. Being able to get people on PrEP, on PEP, and offer contraceptives absolutely is the best thing that could happen. And if he's using OnlyFans or Grindr or anything else, not only is he cute, and I would click on his photo on Grindr, but I think his messaging out there is timely, and I think it's a great thing.
I mean, social media rules the way we get our information. Most people unfortunately get news from TikTok or he knows his audience. Yeah. So he knows that, people are glued to OnlyFans and or, Grindr. Sex sells. I mean, prostitution's the oldest profession in the world. So there's nothing.
I can't make a living.
But I mean, here's, and again, we've been talking about how government is so against us. So here's an out queer politician doing something good in spite of everything else that's going on. So who cares how he's doing it and where he's doing it? Unfortunately, there's been too many other politicians that have gone to Grindr and OnlyFans and have been found out and have, been under the radar and say one thing and do another. So, good for him.
I mean, hey, whatever works. I mean, if you need thirst traps to promote yourself, go ahead. And PrEP is a fantastic program. I mean, we're now progressing towards yearly injectables, I think. And I mean, I still do the daily pills, but.
Well, I think this is great what this Green Party member is doing over there. One, I think, PrEP party at OnlyFans just sounds like a great idea in general. But also there's actually kind of a serious issue with Australia with PrEP, where Gilead actually got caught trying to do some nasty price things with PrEP about a decade ago. So he's actually being much nicer. Like that's one of the reasons why they have some of the issues with PrEP right now, and why it probably isn't fully free yet. But it sounds like he might be able to make that work. I'm sure they'll make sure that they do it in a way where Gilead doesn't get to make much money. Too bad. But that's going to help more people.
At least they have a national health system who will try to subsidize for the drugs. I mean, look at us.
And he's clicking on a market. There needs to be more people finding different ways to get the message to elderly people that are not as social media savvy. I mean, there's lots of other. This is just a good start, or one aspect of a percentage of people that need to be communicated with, and they know their market. And I think it's great that he's chosen this way to do it.
Though, to be honest, I'd love to survey OnlyFans patrons to see their age, because I bet there's more tech-savvy seniors on there than many know.
Yep. You're right.
And it's one of those things I like to make note of. As somebody on this table, I think the only one that's held elected office, the idea of obviously using a social media platform like this to be able to amplify a message for a party platform is absolutely important. And technically, he's not the first guy to have ever campaigned on Grindr for public office. You're talking to a guy who actually did that. Anybody?
How did your survey work out?
Hey, I won 58.
That's how you met Alex.
So.
We did meet on Grindr, actually.
Oh my lord! Before this becomes okay,
that's great.
Yeah, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he's using social media this platform to ultimately be able to go forward and build a coalition on his party's ideas, especially when you're looking at a hung parliament. Any way that you can move and maneuver to get your advocacy out there, absolutely.
Hopefully they get accepted into the ruling majority coalition. That's the thing. Well, anyways, parliamentary politics aside, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ and ally community.
If our community is important to you, share the news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on our favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Bobby Huen, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Rex Rogosch, Alex Morash, Gil Pontes, and Glen Weinzimer. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, be transformative, and queer.
Good night.